I had done one or two small acquisitions, buying out someone who was going to retire. And I realized, you can get clients one at a time, or you can buy them in chunks. And so we set the goal and we had these plans. And a year later, we had really not made any progress at all. I recorded what did I do at work every 15 minutes for 2 weeks. And of course, I mean, this is probably super predictable, but the area of our biggest opportunity was getting the least amount of my time and focus. And so I've got these two people who I'm paying payroll and salaries and benefits and all this in order to help us achieve that goal, kept me focused on it. And we started to make some deals. From 2015 at 125 million to 2020, that's 5 years, 10x'd. Now, there's a lot of problems with growth that comes that fast, but really the key takeaway is when we focus on and resource whatever our goals are, that is the ultimate superpower.
I'm joined by John Knowlton, an extraordinary person who's been very involved in wealth management that he managed to sell off for a huge amount of money in 2014. And he was also a prison chaplain. So he's now involved in counseling for the Christian community and helping them also build wealth. I'm with great pleasure welcoming John Knowlton today. Hi, John.
Hey, Zarina, it's an honor to be on your show.
My pleasure. All right, where do we begin? You have a very interesting story on your profile, exemplifying two young children being raised in a troubled family, and one of them turns out to be a bum, the other one turns out to be an anesthesian, so a doctor.
Yeah.
Why did you bring this up? Is this a real story?
Oh, absolutely. So I'll just flesh it out a little bit more.
Sure.
So I was a jail chaplain. So that means I was working in a prison, and my job was to walk around and walk into the cell where there would be a group of 8 or 10 men confined and waiting a trial or they're sentenced there, what have you, and talk to them, develop relationships, and offer what help I could from a Christian perspective. And as I was walking around, one of the fellows that I came in contact with was a trustee. Now, a trustee in a jail is someone who's an inmate who the management of the prison has determined is trustworthy. So they're a trustee. And so they're trustworthy to mop the floors and empty waste baskets and things like this. And this guy had a really good personality and seemed to be a hard worker. And so I said to him, "Hey man, what are you doing in here? You seem to have your stuff together. Why are you in jail?" And he said, outside of the prison, everybody has a job and I want to be special. So I didn't have a job. So I had to sell drugs to make money, and then I got arrested and now I'm in jail. Second person that I met, not in the jail, but who had a very similar upbringing, also from the city of Chicago. He was raised with his parents, dad disappeared, mom died, raised by an alcoholic older sister. But somehow a teacher spoke into his life and said, "You are special because you're good at school, you're good at science, and you're good at math." And he ended up doing well enough in school that he could go to college, did well enough in college that he could go to medical school, and he became a doctor and anesthesiologist. And so whereas his entire family was controlled by substances, his job was to control substances for the benefit of other people. Mm-hmm. So very similar upbringings for both these men, complete outcomes. And here's what I think the difference is how did they think? The first guy was very selfish with his specialness. He wanted to be different and special, and so was very focused on himself. What can I get for me? How can I be special above the people around me? The second guy, someone told him he was special, and he used that to serve other people. And in the reality of the world is, as we use our gifts, talents, and skills to serve other people, it tends to result in success. And success can be measured lots of different ways, but I think we could all agree being an anesthesiologist is a more successful life than being in jail or prison.
Mm. Excuse me. This reminds me of a story by, sorry, Napoleon. Allegedly, he was told as a child by a fortune teller that he would take over half the world or something like that. And he believed her. So now the question was whether this was really written in faith, or was it just his belief in the fortune teller that caused him to be motivated and to and to believe that he was indeed destined for that. And so my thinking while you were telling the story is, the second person who became a doctor or an anesthesiologist, he actually believed that he was special because someone else told him so, but the other one
Sure.
had no support. So yeah, it is
Yeah.
in a way mindset, but there is at least a little bit of support that needs to come from outside, like a mirror to us, or yeah.
But yeah, that's an excellent point. We have a great effect on the people around us. Um, One thing that's true about us is for the most part, our physical system is sort of closed. In other words, if I have a cancer, you're not going to catch it from me, or high blood pressure, you're not going to catch it from me. But if I have a bad mood or a stinking attitude, and we're in the same space, our emotional systems are open to the environment around us. And so that's so critical to be cognizant of that and to be focused on providing good inputs to the people around us. It's just we have such an effect on people that and we may not even realize it.
Mhm. Let's talk a little bit about the traditional success that you achieved first, if you like, and then talk about what you're doing now in terms of
Sure.
helping souls with their path forward.
Yeah.
So, how did you go into wealth management? What was the story of this company?
Sure. I stumbled into it backward. So I was a pastor serving churches, and my first wife was convinced that ministry was ruining our marriage. And so I needed a job. I mean, I was painting apartment buildings to, buy groceries. And my mother sent me a videotape, an old VHS tape, that you would stick into the machine and rewind it and all this. It was a recruiting video from a wealth management company in the United States called Edward Jones. And I watched it and I applied for their job of being a financial advisor, and they chose not to hire me. But the process got me interested in the field. And so I pursued that career. And it turned out I was okay at it. And so I was, building a business one client at a time, getting on the phone, calling people up, seeing if they would buy some investments and what have you. And after maybe 15, 16 years, I had done one or two small acquisitions, buying out someone who was going to retire. And I realized, you can get clients one at a time, or you can buy them in chunks. And I liked the chunks. You grow faster and can build a career path for people on your team and your staff and all this. And so I had a one partner in 2014, and we were managing $125 million of clients' assets. And we set the goal to be at $1 billion. So that's 8 times bigger. And we realized that mergers and acquisitions, buying out other retiring financial advisors, was our biggest opportunity. And so we set the goal and we had these plans. And a year later, we had really not made any progress at all. And so I put myself through a rigorous exercise of doing a time study for 2 weeks. If you don't have to do this, don't do it. It's just miserable. But I recorded what did I do at work every 15 minutes for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And have you done this,
I've heard
Serena?
this approach. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd never considered it, but I've heard about it. Yeah.
Okay, well, don't do it if you don't have to. It's not fun. But then at the end of this time period, I had over 400 data points of what did I do. And then, of course, it was before AI, so I couldn't just put it into a chat tool. So I had to sort of categorize each of these data points, and they fell into four big buckets. And of course, I mean, this is probably super predictable, but the area of our biggest opportunity was getting the least amount of my time and focus. And so we did two key hires. The first was another financial advisor to take on some of my personal client load. And then secondly was an administrative person whose sole job was to work on mergers and acquisition activities. So I hired her and I freed up some of my time. So I had to keep her busy. So I had to actually think about, okay, 40 hours a week, what is someone going to do to drive towards this goal that we have of buying more businesses and 8 times growing eightfold our business. Well, doggone it, Zarina, it started to work. When you focus on something, it starts to work. One of the things that I believe is that your life tends to move in the direction of your dominant thoughts. And so I've got these two people who I'm paying payroll and salaries and benefits and all this in order to help us achieve that goal, kept me focused on it. And we started to make some deals, do some deals. We were buying other businesses. We were growing our footprint. And then in 2018, we merged with another company, very similar size. We were maybe a little under 200 million of assets. They were a little over 200 million of assets. But they had developed really great capabilities around investment management and their client service model. And we had the mergers and acquisitions capabilities. So when we put those two companies together, we now had a platform which was really supercharged. And so from 2018 until I retired and sold my interest in the business in 2020, we went from we went up to 1.25 billion. So remember, my goal was to be 1 billion. We were at 1.25 billion. So from 2015 at 125 million to 2020, that's 5 years, 10x. Now, there's a lot of problems with growth that comes that fast, but really the key takeaway is when we focus on and resource whatever our goals are, that is the ultimate superpower, is to focus and resource.
Hmm. Okay, focus and resource. Is there any, is this what you told me that you have an upcoming book. Is this what your book talks about, your business development and business experience?
Well, I thank you for asking about it. The book is called Thinking for Success. So it's 52 stories that upgrade our thinking to boost productivity, problem solving, and relationships. So the book, I didn't set out to write a book, but what happened was as I was building this team and growing the company, I realized that some of the people that worked for me would keep running into the same mistakes or having the same problems again and again. And I would try to tell them what to do or give them principles, and that didn't help them solve their own problems or change their thinking. So then I realized that I needed to use a different method. And so the method that I came upon was to tell stories. And so I began to look for stories in history and literature, like your story about Napoleon. That's a great one that I'm going to make sure I tuck away. Thank you for that. But I would tell a story in a staff meeting. And then as we discuss the story, hey, have you ever experienced something like that? Did that ever happen to somebody you know? What could they have done differently? Things like this. Then we start to engage in the way that the story kind of changes how we think and opens up new ways of thinking, new neural pathways, so that we can then change our behavior and then get better outcomes. So after a period of time, I said, you know what, I'm going to forget these stories. So I began to write them down. At some point, I had 40 of them. And I said, you know what, if I had 52, that'd be one a week for staff meetings and whatnot. So that's where we're at. I've got the 52 best stories that I've used and found. And they're really designed for anybody who's running a team or leading an organization uh, to use in your staff meetings, stimulate some thinking, and see how your staff responds, upgrades their thinking, and begin to solve their own problems. And it's a fun way to teach people.
No, absolutely. It also uses neurosciences as a backing because we think in archetypes. So it's normal that stories actually teach people and make them act differently more than any other approach. Yeah, great. Do you have a title for the book?
The book is called Thinking for Success.
Thinking
Yep.
for Success.
So I kind of gave you the title there. I snuck it in. It's Thinking for Success. And then the subtitle is 52 Stories that upgrade your thinking to boost productivity, problem solving, and relationships.
Yeah. John, why did you decide to leave the wealth management business?
Well, two reasons. Thanks for asking that too. First was we'd hit my business goal. My goal was to be at 1 billion. And then secondly, my wife and I have four children. The youngest two, we fostered and adopted them. And one of the things that's true about children who are adopted is if you are eligible to be adopted, that means something went really wrong in your life, right? A parent wasn't available or sick or died or neglectful or abusive or what have you. And so often adopted children come with this history of trauma, which affects their behaviors and their adaptations to the trauma can be pretty dysfunctional. Any case, one of our adopted children uh, had begun exhibiting really violent behavior and so needed to be in a residential treatment for 4 years.
Ooh,
But
yeah.
the child was ready to come back home at the same time that we had hit my business goal. And so my wife was saying, hey, I could use a little help here. You know,
Mhm.
we're going to reintegrate this child into our family. And you work a lot, John, which was very true. And so uh, we took that opportunity of those two things, happening at the same time: business goal and kid coming home, and my attention needing to shift back to the family. And so that's I sold to the partner group. We had 12 partners at the time. And by the way, that firm has continued to grow. 5 years ago, they were $1.25 billion. They just announced a deal this morning that'll take them to $4 billion. So
Mhm.
the firms continue to do great, and I'm super happy for them.
Yeah, fantastic. How about the other dedication that you had, which was the jail chaplain? Did you keep this position or did you
That
replace?
was a 1 year
Uh-huh.
commitment when I was in graduate school. I was in seminary. I went to school. My post grad, after my bachelor's degree, my schooling was for ministry. And so the work that I do now is called C12, and C12 is a peer advisory group for Christian CEOs. And so it's really helping these business leaders to build great businesses for a greater purpose. And so it's really this perfect combination, for me, anyways, of uh, integrating our faith in our business work. So I love business and I love helping people and connecting them to God. And so this is the work that I do now, is helping Christian business leaders uh, really do. We focus hardcore on great business, building great businesses, excellent HR, organizational development, sales and marketing, financial management, operational excellence, and also helping them to make sure that they're representing their faith effectively and that they're running their business the way that Jesus would if he was in their shoes. So I couldn't be happier with the work that I do. It's this perfect combination for me.
Can you elaborate a little bit on Christian business? I've heard this before and I've had other guests, but I've actually never delved into the topic. How is this different from doing business ethically or in any other, how should I say? Yeah. in an ethical manner? How is Christian business different? What does Christianity bring on top of ethical business?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. I appreciate the clarifying question. Um, Good ethics means you don't go to jail. You know, you you follow the laws and all that. And frankly, many ethical systems are derived from, at least in the West, are derived from the Judeo-Christian history and experience. But I'll just put a little finer point on it. And so Jesus was very clear in his teaching that if you want to be great, uh, the path to true greatness is to serve and to put other people first. So back to the very first story, the one guy who was the trustee in the jail, he put himself first. In other words, he wanted him make himself special. And so he would do things that were different and con people for his own personal gain, for his own psychological gain. Jesus' teaching is if you want to be great, you serve other people. You don't seek your own gain. So maybe that's a slight nuance, but my conviction that our life tends to move in the direction of our dominant thoughts is that if our dominant thought is to serve and to put others first, that will actually result in a powerful reality where people around us are blessed, and then we receive blessing in return.
Mm-hmm. But wouldn't this only work in a community where this is the predominant way of viewing the world?
Ask the question a little differently.
If you're surrounded by people who want to make use of you and make sure that they're always on top, so they're against these values that you're preaching, and yet
Yeah.
you want to abide by these values, and you believe that doing business this way will be good for everyone, but yet the majority of the people around you think differently,
Mm.
how does this mix together?
Will they take advantage of you? Is
Yeah,
that what you're asking?
yeah,
Yeah, maybe. They might.
yeah.
I think we have examples uh, where faithful people, though, can actually change culture. Um, and so, well, let's just use Jesus himself, the most famous one. He put others above himself. The immediate result was he was killed, right? Crucified on a cross. And yet the example and the power of that story has inspired people for 2 millennia to try to imitate him and to emulate him. And so I maybe it's possible that people would take advantage of us, but that's really not our responsibility. Other people's responses are not our responsibility. We are only responsible for the inputs that we have into relationships or into the activities. And so, as Christian leaders, uh, we're not we're not required to to try to hedge or worry if somebody else is going to do something wrong. We're to do what's right. And so that's the example of Jesus and our faith and our experience is that when we do that, uh, we're well cared for. One of the things that Jesus said is that the value, I say it like this, the value creation cycle starts with a gift. And what Jesus' words were, give and it will be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, overflowing shall men give into your lap. So value creation starts with a gift. It's not dependent on what the other people might do if you give, but that cycle is true. That's just the way God built the universe.
Mm-hmm. Have you witnessed some transformative stories in your counseling circle now? What does this look like also? Can you tell us a little bit about the C12 circle, what you do there, and if maybe share a story of one of your participants?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So C12, um, I, I've served somewhat as a coach, somewhat as a consultant, somewhat as a mentor. So I facilitate these day-long business retreats. So 7 or 8 hours long. We have content that we cover in the morning, covering some topic of business excellence, and then something that we call a ministry segment where we're really focused on how can we more effectively serve either our customers, our employees, vendors, etc. There was a flood. It was actually a hurricane that came across Florida. That happens several times a year, it seems like. But there was an example of a C12 company um, that had noticed one of their competitors, not their, not their company, their competitor, direct competitor, had been flooded out and wiped out by this hurricane, which dumped 2 feet of rain or something like this. The C12 company heard of the story and their business was intact. They filled a truck up with all kinds of supplies and materials and inventory, drove it to their competitor, gave those materials away, helped their competitor reestablish their business right away so that their employees wouldn't be out of work, so that their customers would be served, etc. It seems counterintuitive. Why would you do this? You might think, gosh, you could go in there and steal their customers or maybe to get their employees or something like this. But one of the principles that Jesus taught was to treat other people as you would wish to be treated. And so, hey, I wouldn't want people to steal my business when I'm under the weather, literally. And so they did this incredible thing. And we have story after story like that, where people have cared for competitors, their clients, their employees in profound ways.
Mhm.
Um, there's
What
a,
does
Go ahead.
what does C12 stand for?
Christian 12. So the group is 12, each group is up to 12 people. And so it's, yeah, that's what it's for. Yeah.
Uh-huh. That's like Jesus's disciples, the 12, or why? Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
12's
You.
a
Uh-huh.
12's a good number of people to gather in a group. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's right.
So are you 12 all together, or are you 13 together with you?
Well, the groups fluctuate as people
Yeah.
come in and go out. So that's
Uh,
the goal is 12. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
You wanted to mention another story?
I'll tell a quick one. It's
Yeah.
another jail story, I guess. I'm attracted to people who've been through tough stuff, I guess. But there's a C12 member in Alabama, and he grew up really rough. And by 18, he had collected more than 20 felony charges for selling drugs. Young man in prison. Well, while he was in prison, there was a group from a local church that would come in once a week and lead a Bible study and some praise and worship or something like this. And one of the people that was coming in was an electrician and owned a company that would install wiring and electrical appliances. Josh, the name of the C12 member, who was an inmate in the prison, was eligible for a work permit or a work release if he could find a job. And so he asked, and yes, this Christian electrician allowed Josh to come work for him. So he would sleep at the prison, but in the daytime he would go and work. He learned the trade of electrician trade. And when he got out of prison, he completed all of his educational requirements and started his own business. And he grew it over time to the point where people were coming to him seeking work. And he realized that many of the people who were coming to work for him, wanting to work for him, were either dealing with substance abuse recovery, they had been in prison, or both in many cases. And so he decided he was going to grow his business so that he could provide good jobs and employment for the people who work for him. But he also realized that if he didn't provide housing for them, then they would just end up in the same environments with other people who are using drugs and breaking the law. And so he now has built housing for more than 50 people who come to work for him. He pays them a wage, teaches them a trade, gives them housing, a safe environment, and he has taken his personal experience of being in prison and turned it into a company that has more than 100 employees, 70% of whom are on a substance abuse recovery journey or have been in prison. Incredible, amazing. And he comes to C12 every month to get inspired and encouraged by his peers.
Mm-hmm. Are the majority of the stories in your upcoming book from personal experiences or from people that you've interacted with? Where do the stories come from?
The stories come from all over. Some are from history. Um, some are from literature, uh, stories in books and or things that have happened to me or occurred to me. So yeah, one of the stories is about a midshipman who was on Captain Cook's ship 400 years ago, and they ran aground on a reef. So any case, there's stories from all over the place.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Fantastic. John, where are you heading next? What do you want to achieve next? You've achieved so much. You've achieved, things in the physical. You're now working on your spiritual life and helping other people. What's next in your life?
Well, I in my 50s, I'm 56 years old now.
Ah, no, no kidding.
It's true, sad but true. Yeah. Well,
Wow.
let me see. During COVID, my family and I became we bought a recreational vehicle, a caravan, and we traveled across the United States. And I spent my first nights on Mount Rainier, which is a 14,000-foot mountain volcano in Washington State. And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Where's this been all my life? So I've become a mountaineer. So I live in Michigan, which is pretty flat, but
Mhm.
every year since I've gotten to the top of at least one big mountain, and so that's a cool thing. But more perhaps more impactful for others would be my wife and I have recently invited our adult children to join us in what we call shared governance. So, a model of wealth management is it's mom and dad's money and we do what we want with it till we die, and then kids get what's left. Well, we've purposed to cause our family wealth to be a force for good for generations. And so we've invited our children, adult children, to come join us in making decisions about how do we invest our money, how do we give it away, how shall we manage this. And so we've we haven't put them in charge of us, but we've invited them in to learn from us. How do we think? How do we make investments, and what do we think about giving money away, and how do we assess the recipients? And so this is a really fun project for us, which is it's bringing our family together closely, and it's a powerful tool for transmitting values through the mechanism of thinking together about money.
Mm-hmm. What career path did your children choose in the
Let's see.
grown-up
One
years?
is in nonprofit. She supports schools. Uh, One is a general contractor. He does buildings. Right now, he's renovating a house. Um, and then the other two are still not quite adults yet, so they're close to
Yeah.
adulthood, but still
Uh-huh.
finishing school.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. John, I enjoyed this conversation very much. Anything else you'd like to add that you wanted to speak about?
Oh, well, thanks, Irina. So the the book we talked about is called Thinking for Success, and it's available now at
Ah, it's
Barnes and
available
Noble
already.
or wherever you like to get books. And my wife and I have a company called Abundant Thought Revolution. And so
Okay.
there's cool stuff on our website there, thoughtrevolution.com. And so we post insights and ideas that we have, and things we're learning, and then our adventures as well. We do rock climbing and we ride our bikes all over the place and climb mountains and things. So it's a kind of a fun follow.
Fantastic. So the book is already out. So you're writing another book for.
Oh, so Thinking for Success is available for pre-orders right now in July as we're talking about it. It'll be released at the end of this year. But yeah, you get addicted to writing books, so I have two more that are in the outline stage. The first one is on followership. And so you and I have been to many leadership conferences, and there's podcasts about leadership, and there's uh webcasts and podcasts and books all about leadership, but we're all also in a role of being a follower. And I'm curious and interested in learning how to be a great follower. How do I help somebody else's vision come to pass? And so I'm working through and in the research phase on that. What does a great follower look like? And what are the qualities? So I don't have a title for that yet. My working title is Leaders Who Follow, but that'll be the next one. I'll let you know when I'm ready to talk about that one.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, it's interesting. Is it also related to Christianity, like the disciples, how they're leaders as well? Is it along these lines, or?
Well, I see it everywhere. So there are biblical principles apply everywhere, but Jesus said, "Come, follow me." And so certainly everyone who's a Christian is a follower. But for example, I'll just give you one little insight here. So Steve Jobs created Apple computers and phones and all this, right? And he was so focused, he was maniacal about the details of every feature of, for example, an iPhone. And so there's one of the guys that is a journalist who covers Apple closely says that Steve Jobs made the iPhone unique. So it completely broke all the categories of what a phone was when it was launched in 2007. But how come so many people have one? That's because of Tim Cook. Tim Cook, who's now the CEO, but he was the chief operating officer. He's the one that built the supply chain and figured out how to package it so beautifully and how to produce 100 million of these things every year. And so the quote is, Jobs made the iPhone unique. Cook made it ubiquitous. In other words, he made it appear everywhere. And so I'm really interested in exploring that interplay between the leader that everybody sees and the follower who actually brings the vision to pass. So I'm still working on it, and leaders are nothing without followers. I think it was Mark Twain who said, if you're a leader and no one's following you, you're just taking a walk.
That's hilarious. It's a good one. Great conversation. Good
Thank
luck
you,
with
Zarina.
both of your books. I'm very curious about the first one coming out already with the stories. I do love stories. I actually have one book somewhere here that was quite famous, full of stories. Yeah, I know the power of stories. So
Yeah. Thanks for the
looking forward
Napoleon
to
story.
your.
I had heard that years ago, but I'd forgotten it. You brought it back to my memory. Thank you.
I can't remember when I read it actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you. Good
Zarina,
chat.
lovely conversation.
Me too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.